Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to teach you guys how to make your own 3D models in Blender from scratch and then be able to import them into Unreal Engine like this, and even be able to play around with your own objects that you 3D model by yourself. So if this sounds interesting, let's get started. It's going to be a very easy tutorial, so let's get started. Alright guys, so before we get started with the video, I'm going to show you guys my new game, Kira Legends. I've been working on this for about almost a year, about 8 months exactly. And you can do multiple things like talk to NPCs, unlock new weapons, fight epic monsters, even transform into a dragon, and explore a new world. So if you guys are interested in those type of games, you could try out the demo coming out soon. Please wish us on Steam, it's free and helps me out so much. Anyway guys, let's get started. So first you need to download Blender. Just look up Blender download and then download Blender 4.0, and then it should open up something like this. Just left click on the screen off of that. So if you're trying to move around with like right click and stuff and it's doing a bunch of weird stuff, that's because for some reason you don't do that in Blender. So to move around, it's just the middle mouse button, and I didn't know what that was, but the middle mouse button is actually the scrolling wheel. You just left click the scrolling wheel and then you move it around, and that's how you move the camera around. You could scroll in and out with the wheel, and then if you hold shift and middle mouse, you could pan around. And then the next thing I want to teach you guys how to do is actually make a basic 3D model. But really quick, I want to teach you guys basic movement. So first of all, we have all the different axes right here on this side. We can click these to go to different views. However, if you have a numpad on your computer and you just click 1, that will take you to the front, and 3 is to take you to the side. Next up is how to move this actual object. Well, first actually I'm going to show you guys all the different panels. So right here is basically like a details tab. Don't worry about all this scary stuff. But you have your transform details, kind of like an Unreal Engine, the location, rotation, and scale. And then right here is your basically like your outliner. It has a list of every single object inside this project. And then up here, don't worry about too much. This is basically how you view the material. This is basically your tools for movement. So if you click on this arrows right here, you can move it around on the X, Y, and Z. Pretty simple. However, one shortcut is you can hold G to move it around, and then just right click while you're doing it to put it back, or you can do Control Z. And then you can do, if you hold G and you hold Y at the same time, it's going to move in the Y axis. If you hold G and X at the same time, it's going to move in the X axis. And if you hold G and Z at the same time, it's going to move in the Z axis. Now, we can go to rotation, and we can rotate it however we want. However, very similar way as you do with G. Hold R, and then you can rotate it. Or you can hold R and Y, rotate on the Y. R and X, rotate on the X. And R and Z, and rotate on the Z. Oh, ignore that. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. I accidentally messed around a little bit. If you ever get on wireframe on the top, just click up here on solid and then go back. But yeah, basically R and then Z for rotation on the Z axis, R and Y for rotation on the Y, and then R and X for rotation on the X axis. And then we can click on scale right here. This is just for the scale, very simple stuff right here. We can scale it around if we want. I'll undo that. Instead, another shortcut, S for scale. And you just hold S and drag out to make it bigger, and move your mouse to the right to make it bigger, and mouse back in to the left to make it smaller. Or you can hold S and Y to do that on the Y axis, S and X to do that on the X axis, and S and Z to do on the Z axis. So let's go back to select mode and delete this. So you just left click it and click delete on your keyboard, and I'll teach you guys how to add a new model. So if you hold shift and A, it opens up this menu. Just go to mesh, hover over to the side, there's a bunch of 3D models. Let's just do a cube, and I'll go in front view, and I can hold G and Z and left click and bring this up. Now let's say for now we're just going to create something very simple. Just create a house. I can hold shift right click to pan up, shift right click my cursor here, and shift A, mesh, and let's say we're going to do a cone for the roof. If I click on this drop down right here, add cone, I can choose how many vertices I want. So let's say I lower that to something like 12. And then as soon as I start moving around and start doing stuff, this might go back down. But we can just drop that back down here. I could just hold S, scale this up a little bit, make it bigger on the X maybe, and then make it bigger on the Y. It's gonna look very ugly, but as long as you just figure out the tools, that's the main goal of this tutorial. Hold G and Z to move it on the Z axis. And then we got a basic roof. Now let's say we want to add a door. Shift right click here. Oh, by the way, sorry guys, holding shift and right click will basically have you move your cursor wherever you're hovering your mouse at. So if I shift right click over here, that's where I can create a door. Hold shift and A, go to mesh, cube, and then I will just hold S to scale this down. And then I can do S and Z to make it taller, S and X to make it a little bit wider, S and Y to make it thinner, and then hold G and Z and put this down to about right here. And let's say I want to add a doorknob. I can hold shift right click, I can move around and go down here, shift right click to put it right here, hold shift A, go to mesh, and this time add an icosphere, and this will create a little sphere. S, scale it down, and if I want, if you click right click on, and then it'll open up this menu. If you just click right click, open up a menu. If you click shade smooth, that's gonna make it smooth out like the vertices, make it more smooth like this. Or you can right click and click shade flat to make it not smooth like this. I'm gonna shade smooth. And now we have a very basic house. If I go to shading, so go back to layout. Okay, so look, on the top we have a bunch of different tabs for our different editors. This is the layout mode, the basic mode. Let's say I want to go to shading on the very top, click that. This is basically where it's gonna have all the materials previewed right here, and everything's white because we didn't assign any material. So let's do one material at a time. So left click on the cube for the house. If we go down here, this is our basically our editor for the material. We can use middle mouse and hold down to pan around. This is gonna be kind of like blueprints where it's like visual scripting a little bit. So if I click plus new right here, I can create a new material. Left click and name this. I'll just name it tan. And then I can go on the base color, and then I can just double click it, open up the color wheel, set this to whatever I want. I can turn down the brightness if I want to, like this. And now we got a basic house color right here. And don't worry about all this other stuff, but if you want to, you could change the roughness just by going down where it says roughness. You can affect the roughness like so. But you can just keep everything basic, just worry about the base color. Now I can left click on this thing, on the cone, plus new. And I can call this red. We can have a red roof. Base color, and make it red, like so. Now for the door, I can add new. Let's call this dark brown. Click on base color, put this to like an orange right here about, and make it darker for a dark brown. And then I can click on the doorknob, plus new. I can call this gray. Click on base color, and then I can leave it a white and just put it down for a gray. Now what if we want to create, another way you can create a different material is if you click on something, you have a material right here, you just click this little paper right next to it to create a new material, rename it, and that's going to duplicate it, and you can create a new material from there. I can get rid of that and just go back. So if I click on something and I want to change the material to one we already created before, click this drop down. I can just pick any material I already made, so I can pick any one I want. I'll just put it back. So now that we got our basic house, what if we want to render this out into an image? So on the very top here, this is solid mode, wireframe, material preview, and then this right here is render mode. If you left click on this circle right here, it's going to look a bit darker because we don't really have much light going on actually in our project, so it's just going to look like this. So if you left click on your light, right here. You can hold G to move it around and move that light around. Now let's say you want to add more light. I can hold Shift D, and that basically just duplicates it if you hold Shift D. And then I can move that around as well, add more light. And then click on here where it says Object, go to World, and then from here it says Background, double click it. We could set the sky color, so I can bring this up, make it a more white, like so. Maybe I'll just make it a bright white, like that. And then let's say, so on the details panel, if we want to render this out, click on this little microwave thing, that's the render. And we have two different render engines. So render engine EV, this is like basic lighting. Or we have more complex lighting called cycles. But as you can tell, it's a lot more laggy and it takes a lot longer to render every frame, every little pixel. So if you're going for just simplistic and want to render something quickly, go on EVs. If you want to do something more higher detailed, you can do cycles. And then all you gotta do, well, we're not done yet. We need to position our camera for where we want to render the scene. So let's put it back to EV for now, just so it's faster to move around. If you click 0, it's going to open up your camera. However, if you move around, it's going to get out. So there's a way we can make it where we can move the camera with the mouse. So if you click N on the viewport, it's going to open up this little edit tool. You go down to the side and you click on View, and then scroll down where it says Camera to View. If you can't see it, you can drag this out. It says Camera to View. Click N again to get off. Now if I click 0, I can move around just like any other camera, and I can move this camera to whatever position I want it to, and basically whatever angle this camera is at is where you're going to render the scene. So I could put it right here. Now if you click F12 on your keyboard, it's going to start to render it, and then because I'm on EV, it rendered it instantly, and I can click Image, Save As, and I have an image. However, let's say I want to do cycles. I can change the render engine to cycles. Click F12. It's going to take quite a bit. It's only 9 out of 4,096 samples. So while we're doing that, I will teach you guys how to export this model and put it into Unreal Engine. So you can just minimize this for now. But don't exit out or it'll stop. So let's go to Layout. I can go to Material Preview if I want. So if I were to export this thing, it would only export multiple 3D models in one. I want to actually combine this whole all these models into one 3D model. So what I do is a left click, hold shift, left click to select another object, hold shift, left click, hold shift, left click. And basically, whichever one is light orange is going to be the center of the model. So I'm going to left click on the base. That's going to be the main component. Select the unit. If I hold Control and J, that's going to join all the objects into one, like so. Now I just got one object here. I can right click on it on the side on the outliner, and I can click, there should be a rename button, but if you can't find it, just click F2 to change the name. I can call this house, for example. Now we got one 3D model, and I can go on File, Export, FBX, and then go on Downloads, and then limit it to selected objects, basically, so that it's only what you selected, which is the house. Limit it to mesh, so it's only a 3D model. And then geometry, we can just set this to face. That's basically going to keep it low poly, I'm pretty sure, not keep it shade smooth. And then on left, check big animation. And then downloads, call this house. Then click export FBX. And then let's say we want to save this, just click File, Save. But first you need to do Save As, and name this whatever you want. I'll just post my desktop and I'll call this Blender Tutorials. But call this whatever you want. And then save. And you have the blend file wherever you have saved it. Just double click to open it, and it'll open up your project. And then let's check our render. And as you can see right here, it's saved. I can do image, save as, but personally I don't really need to keep this render. But if you want, feel free to save it as an image, maybe put on a wallpaper or whatever you want. I'll just X out of this. So next up, I'm going to open Unreal Engine, and I'll teach you guys how to export your own 3D models into Unreal Engine. Okay, so now I'm in my Unreal Engine project. I'm just going to open my level from last tutorial, the landscape. So to do that, you just click File. You can click on Recent Levels and click Landscape. Or you can go to your content browser, click Content, and then find wherever you saved your level. Right here, just double click. And it's going to load it up. And it might look not textured at first. That's because it needs to prepare shaders. And in the meantime, I'll teach you guys how to import your 3D models. So make a new folder, right click, new folder. Call this My 3D Models or whatever you want to call it. I can left click it. And then now in order to import this, we need to drop the files in. So open up your folder. You can go to downloads or wherever you saved your model. As long as it's in FBX or OBJ, it should load in. Just left click it and drag it in right here. And then right here where it says skeletal mesh checkbox, basically a skeletal mesh is for any animation model with a rig, which is basically a skeleton to help it animate. Don't really worry about that. Our object's not going to animate, so just keep it how it is. Leave that unchecked and leave everything else the exact way it is, and click import all. And now, as you can see here, we have a house model. This is going to be, if you double click it, open it up, this is known as a static mesh, which is basically a 3D model that does not have a rig, which basically means it cannot animate. And so that's fine for a house. And as you can see on the side, we have all the materials, because by default it should import the materials for you. But if not, there's a import material checkbox that you can click. And then as you can see right here, it's already having the materials connected to it. However, if any of the materials are wrong or you want to switch it out, you can just change the materials right here. Click save. And then literally all you gotta do is left click and drag this out wherever you want to put it. And then just like any other 3D model, we can move around our object. We can rotate it exactly how we want and move this wherever we feel like it should be. And now you guys know how to import your own 3D models into Unreal Engine so you can make your game look like whatever you want. So I hope you guys liked this tutorial. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.